And there I am. Okay. I'm starting to get the hang of this technology stuff just a little bit. It's not as easy as it looks sometimes when you're doing it by yourself. Other people make it look really, really easy. They spend a lot of time editing, and I just kind of, I don't want to say fly by the seat of my pants, but I kind of do sometimes, right? That's just the way you do. Thank you for letting me spend some time with you. If you didn't know, Myra is away for a little bit. She is going up to pick up our youngest granddaughter to come down and spend some time with us. That should be a good visit. So here is something else that might interrupt some things. Because she's going to be here, I might miss a day or two or three. Okay. So for the daily updates, the people on MeWe and Torah Network, I'm not really going anywhere. I'm just kind of spending time with family. If I miss a podcast or video, please forgive me. Oh, by the way, because this goes out on audio as well, if you're listening on audio only, please go over to YouTube and hit those, like buttons, share buttons, subscribe buttons. All those things help us out. Makes it easier for people to find us. That's what I get out of it. Just makes it easier for people to find us. Going to look at something today. This might be fun. Some of you might be a little upset with me, but that's okay. That's okay. Maybe by the time I get to where I'm going, you'll understand. What I'm going to say is not going to be popular. Okay, I'm just going to say it like that. Excuse me. There's a notion that eventually became the title of a book by Hillary Clinton called "It Takes a Village," and it comes from "It takes a village to raise a child." Now, for believers to adopt this is actually contrary to what the Bible teaches us. And you might be wondering, how can you say that? That just doesn't make any sense to me. Well, you see, the problem is close friends and even some family members may be teaching your children, okay? They may be teaching them something other than how to live the way our Creator designed us to live. They might be teaching them something you don't necessarily want them to be taught. They might be teaching them something that our Creator doesn't want them to be taught. And David understood this, right? And I'm going to refer to Psalm 5:5, which reads, "Surely I was brought forth in iniquity. I was sinful when my mother conceived me." That's not the best translation, but it does follow what most Bibles teach and how they read. If you actually dive in and do a deep, deep word study on this verse, you know that the word or that's translated as "brought forth" has a couple of different meanings depending on context. It can mean to make, it can mean to calve, it can mean to dance, it can mean to drive away, right? It can mean to form. It can also mean to grieve, depending on how it's used. Or it can mean to shapen, how you shape something, how you form something. How something comes into being what it is. What David is saying here is he was taught how to sin. He was taught how to sin. He wasn't born knowing how to sin, right? Nobody's born knowing how. We may have a Some people describe it as a sin nature, but you're not born knowing immediately how to sin. But there were people in David's life as he was growing up who taught him how to sin, and hopefully not on purpose, but it did happen, right? Part of what's known as, I'm having a hard time talking today, part of what is known as the Shema, Hear, O Israel. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 6. But if you keep reading, if you get down to verses 6 and 7, these words I am commanding you today are to be upon your hearts. You will teach them diligently to your children, and speak of them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. There's a whole lot packed into that, right? But what I want to concentrate on is you will teach them diligently to your children. It's the job of the parents to teach their children, right? It's not the village job. It's not the school teachers. It's not the Sunday school teachers. It's not even the pastor. It's the parent's job to raise the child. Let me add something to that. It is the job of loving parents to raise a child. Right? Because, you've got to have that love if you're going to raise children. So where does the idea that it takes a village to raise a child come from? Well, I'm glad you asked, right? It actually is a proverb that most likely, and I did a lot of research when I was writing Tradition to Truth, and didn't include this because, when you're writing a book like that, there's just some things you don't have room to include if you want to keep it basic and simple. But, the people who should know, notice how I said the people who should know, they've traced this proverb most likely to the Igbo tribe of Nigeria. All right, so it's an African proverb. There's nothing wrong with that until you really start looking at what they believed. They worshipped a god named Chukwu, I believe is how they say that. That is their supreme god with little g, because Chukwu gives light. So we can speculate, and it's not really a speculation. If you're going to worship a god that gives light, you're looking at the sun. All right, they were sun god worshipers. They were pagan sun god worshipers. That's who they were. But it goes deeper than that. They also believed there were lesser gods that guided the lives of people. Okay, so you have this sun god, and then you have these other little gods that guide people. They also believed in reincarnation. You die, you get to come back as something or someone, or, who knows, right? They were also polygamists. They had, many, many wives. They considered the entire tribe one large family. They did not consider the individual to be important. Now, let's contrast that just a little bit. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob does consider the individual to be important, to be very important. Each one of us are made in his image, right? Our Creator established the family at creation, right? Adam and Eve, go forth and multiply. That's a family unit. Our Creator instructs us that one wife is sufficient, with the exception, and I have to be careful of this, the exception is a widow with no children. If a woman is widowed and there's no children in that family, then somebody in that tribe needed to step up and say, I will enter a covenant of marriage with her and I will take care of her. I will provide for her. Doesn't mean he brings him into the house. He has to provide a completely separate house that is equal to the one he lives in. All right? Our Creator tells us there's no such thing as reincarnation. Because we are eternal beings, He will provide the place for us to be after we leave this earth. You know, the people who accept Him and love Him, well, they're going to enjoy eternal peace and comfort. The people who reject Him, their eternity is not going to be very good. That lake of fire doesn't sound very appealing to me and shouldn't to you. Now, I know some of you might be wondering, right? Well, what about these single parents? You know, they've got kids and they don't have the resources to raise their children the way they might want to. Don't confuse neighborly love, compassion, or help with actually raising the child. Raising the child is the parent's responsibility. You know, of course, it's fine for people to offer assistance whenever possible, right? Caring for the child while the parent's working to provide the home and the food, the clothing, that's all essential. What I'm looking at is the way a loving parent would teach their children. And hopefully a loving parent would teach their children how to live the way they're designed to live, right? Hopefully. You know, they would teach them to love others, to show that love and compassion every day, every chance they have, to respect and fear our Creator, to worship Him alone. Our world today is filled with people who have either rejected our Creator or they're trying to hide behind Him so they can teach sin. Sometimes this actually happens in the worship community too. We might never think a child should hang out on the street corner or in the back alley selling drugs or sex, but we give very, very little thought to the teachers in the worship community who might be teaching false traditions, false doctrine, instead of what is really in the Bible. Pastors, are you listening to me? Unfortunately, I've witnessed this firsthand. I've seen it. Seen it recently. Church leaders who teach things that not only conflict with the sacred word of the Creator, but they teach things that cause children and some adults to sin. Right? You might be wondering about parents who are involved with illegal or illicit activity. Do we need to get involved for the child's protection? Well, we're to do what is necessary to protect innocent life. Think of it that way. We are to protect innocent life. And there's no one-size-fits-all answer or solution for each and every situation because they're all different. Every instance will be different. Every intervention will be different. But while we might be thinking that is kind of the village raising the child, there's a very distinct difference between intervening on the child's welfare behalf and influencing the child in a positive or negative way. It doesn't take a village to raise a child. It may take a village to protect them, but it doesn't take a village to raise them. What it takes is parents who love their Creator and who love their children more than they love themselves. It's that simple. It's that simple. And I know it's very, very hard being a grandparent, right? It's hard for grandparents not to rush in and offer direction. But sometimes, us grandparents, we need to remember it was our job to raise our children properly. So when our children get older, they will not depart from that. That comes from Proverbs, if you're wondering. If we as believers learn to live the way we're designed to live, teach our children, they will teach their children. But it all begins with us. It all begins with us. We're the ones who need to learn how to live in such a way that we please and glorify our Creator, not give him cause to be angry with us, right? If you need more information on that, you can visit Give God 90. There's all kinds of things there. If you are interested, I think I just bumped my microphone. Sorry about that, folks. If you're interested, the books are available at authorjerrymitchell.com, right? You can go there and see what the books are all about. Hopefully this has given you something to think about. How do you think raising children should be done? Should we teach them, oh, you can do anything in moderation? You know, I've heard that, right? Well, what's a little moderate murder? What's a little moderate adultery? Yeah, probably not a good idea, right? Something to think about. Something to think about until next time. And until next time, I wish you many, many blessings, everyone.